Speaking of gambling, guys, Dana White spoke to TMZ yesterday about this this ongoing gambling story. Some interesting thoughts. He did as we expected him to do, which was distance themselves from it. And I think tried to position, whether true or not, the UFC as the ones who initiated the fire alarm to the FBI. He said that, after the fight, he confirmed what we said right here on the program. They spoke to Isaac once the questionable and exaggerated gambling activity was coming out before the fight. Spoke to Isaac, spoke to his team. He said he spoke to his lawyer as well. Isaac assured them that nothing nefarious was going on, that he was 100% going in there to knock this guy out and all this stuff. Dana says he sees the fight, he watches it unfold, he immediately goes to the back, calls the FBI, and thus the investigation begins. Whether that happened or not, that's his word. We'll take his word for it. But as opposed to, the FBI getting these reports from this service that monitors this stuff and them initiating it, he kind of put the UFC at the forefront. Anyway, we have a snippet from the interview. Here it is.
There's no proof that he's done this yet, but I can tell you this, it doesn't look good. It definitely doesn't look good. We approached him before the fight, he and his lawyer, and they denied that anything, from everything. Are you hurt? Are you injured in any way? Do you owe people money? Have you been asked to do anything, illegal? We asked them all the questions, and everything was absolutely not, hell no. So the fight went on. And then, like I said, fight ended by finish in the first round, literally walked out from the octagon into my room in the back and called the FBI.
I don't really have any problems with anything that he said in that interview. What about you guys? Rick, what about you?
No, I thought he handled, yesterday we were talking about on the show what you do if you're the UFC. This is exactly what you do. You distance yourself from this, right? Where the UFC is not involved in this. You explain what happened, which is that this was flagged. You follow the protocol. You ask the fighter assures you nothing's going to happen. And then the fight happens, and it looks fishy. And the first thing Dana says that he did is called the FBI. So I don't think he could have explained that or handled it better if this was exactly how the protocol was followed. The only question I have is that the standard operating procedure, right? Is the standard operating procedure to go to the fighter themselves and interview them and ask them in this capacity? I guess the fact that he had his lawyer with him probably gives me some confidence in the credibility there, right? Because now somebody else is a party to it. But yeah, this is exactly what you need to be doing if you're Dana White. We are not involved in this, and we are cooperating with the FBI in the investigation.
PT, one thing that he did say was, there's some tweets out there saying that the FBI is investigating hundreds of fights. I have not been able to confirm that, but he did say that is not true. And the other thing that I thought was interesting was that he said, he acknowledged that there are people coming out, fighters coming out saying, I've been approached. We talked about Vanessa Demopoulos. We talked about Vince Morales, Lando, even Edgar Chavez posting on social media. And we could get to that in a moment. And then the people that, I've talked about as well and others have as well. And he's like, why didn't you tell us? When you got approached, why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell the authorities even more so than us? Why didn't you run? And to me, it's like, fighters especially, PT, as you know them as well as I do, questionable things are happening all day, every day. They're not going to go run and tell the cops every single time someone walks up to them and says, hey, would you be interested in this? Imagine someone goes up to you in the gym and is like, hey, you want a shot of this testosterone? Let me go run and tell the cops right now. It's a little bit rich to then, in the aftermath be like, why didn't you tell us? Now, you could be upset about it and be like, maybe you should not talk about it publicly like this because you're only going to get a phone call or something like that. But I don't think it's necessarily fair to say to his fighters, hey, you should have run and told us or the feds when people are reaching out to you like this.
Yeah, could you imagine, a fighter having Dana's number and calling him every time something a bit weird happened in this fucking sport? I mean, it would happen all. Look, the hundreds of fights being investigated, I can understand where he's coming from in that position because I think in fairness, DC, Chiesa, other fights, we kind of know when something weird is happening. And I think from Dana's point of view, he's trying to protect the legitimacy of the sport. I think you guys did a great job of kind of breaking down how damaging this could be to the UFC, to MMA as a whole, if this is as bad as some people are speculating it is to be. But it does feel very big, this whole thing. And I don't know. I'm surprised Kash Patel wasn't sitting right there, the head of the FBI. I know he's been at events before, but yeah, I mean, it's just a really weird situation. And I heard you say this yesterday as well about feeling naive. That's how I feel at the moment, because like you, I've been doing this a very long time. I've been embedded in gyms. I have relationships with fighters over these. I've never heard of this in my life. Not to say I never thought it was going down, but I have never directly had someone say to me, this is happening. And, based on everything we're hearing from you primarily over the last few days, like, there are a number of people with these stories. Like, even yesterday's show, you were getting text messages during the show. It's making me feel a bit out in the dark, to be honest.
And I want to also say this. This is not, in my opinion, a UFC problem. Obviously, something happened on Saturday, and obviously a lot of the fighters that have come out are UFC fighters. But like, this, as easy as it is to get to a UFC fighter, it's just as easy to get to a fighter who works for another organization or fights for another organization. And we all remember that there was an issue with PFL fights that were taped and were still, available to be bet on, and that was a huge thing. And then PFL fights were, not available to be bet on for a period of time. And so the reason I bring that up is, someone reaches out to me and says like, oh yeah, take a look at this fight, and it wasn't a UFC fight. It was not a UFC fight. And so this is not, like, people need to recognize, as we said on Monday, there is not any part of me that thinks that the UFC is doing this. Absolutely not. Dana is 100% right. Like, it's just absolutely insane to try to fix fights if you're a promoter. I mean, you're done. You're finished. Not only are you going to jail, your business is done, right? It just so
into regulation too, right? Like, they spend so much time trying to be recognized.
No, there's just, I mean, they're worth hundreds of millions of dollars. These guys, like, what? There's no reason for it.
That's the best point. Consider the logic, right? We're talking about gambling. What kind of gamble would it be to risk $7.7 billion in rights fees on a few $1 million? Like, it just does not make sense. You'd have to be absolutely insane. You'd have to be self-sabotaging to be involved in this from a UFC perspective.
And so the only reason why I say it is, like, when we talk about this gambling problem, I think we need to call it like a gambling problem in the sport. It's very easy to reach out to a PFL fighter, an LFA fighter, a one championship fighter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
This is the problem, though. The UFC benefits a great deal from being the primary fight provider of all of MMA, right? They benefit greatly from how many people they have on the roster, for how many fights they do, for how much activity they do. And there's a lot, oftentimes, that people say, instead of MMA, say the UFC. This is the downside. When things go shitty, this is what happens as well, right? This is the other edge of that sword, which is you benefit greatly from MMA being equal to UFC in most people's eyes. This is the days where it's not as good, right? Where we have a problem in the sport of MMA, but the casual person is going to be like, the UFC has a problem.
Yeah, it's Kleenex, it's Xerox, etc.
There's been stories about boxing.
Oh yeah.
Hundreds of years. You know what I mean? Like, it's part of the fabric of the sport, is how dirty it is. Like, back in the day, it was regularly fixed. Like, there was fixed fights a lot. To think that this is just a UFC thing is absolutely absurd. Like, this is the same thing as you were explaining yesterday with the training facilities. Boxing gyms are like that as well. Like, you can go to your local boxing gym, walk in, and there's probably like some kind of contender training in there. That's how it is in these sports.
There are literally boxing gyms here in New York that have contenders training on them that you can just walk into and train at.
Well, as you're saying with this example of the boxers and the gyms, it's a fighter issue. It is not a promotional issue. A fighter could fight for the UFC and throw a fight there, and 2 months later be fighting in PFL and throw a fight there. It has nothing to do with the again, I'm hoping that it has nothing to do with the organizations, but it is much more likely that this is happening at that level and they are not involved. And as Dana White said, first thing he did, or again, this is his account, but first thing he did after that fight went off was he was on the phone with the FBI.
I do wonder why the FBI wouldn't have known before. Like, if the service is being alerted of suspicious gambling activity, you would think that they'd be connected. It's curious to me that it's up to the UFC, the way he positions it, to then alert the FBI. You would think that, because like maybe a promoter doesn't want to alert the FBI. You would think that the independent entity would alert the FBI. But
well, that also comes into play. Why is Dana White or the UFC team the one questioning Isaac Delgarian? It just feels weird, right? Like, hey, are you going to fix a fight in my promotion? Is that and what's he supposed to say? And it's a very odd thing.
Yes, and we did see the same thing with Eddie Hearn.
Yeah,
and to be honest, I still don't understand why they
didn't pull it.
Yeah, like they said, okay, I'm going to beat, but like, come on, man, look at the actual evidence. Look at the actual evidence. All of a sudden, a flurry of bets come in on a very specific result that is an absurd result if you just look at the two guys' history and their skill set, and it just pulled the damn fight.
The only part I would point to is we talk a lot about fighter rights and them, like, he doesn't get his paycheck if he's not getting it based on reports, he's not getting his paycheck anyway. But if Isaac is not involved in anything and you tell him you're not fighting because I noticed this thing, it would be understandable, but it would also be contrary to the idea of like these fighters have to make the money and we have to give them the opportunity to do it. So it's a tricky situation. I ultimately, if I was in his shoes, if I was Dana White, I probably would not have let him fight because of the potential liability and risk, and just said, hey, we'll take care of you, we'll pay you anyway. But it's a dangerous dance. That's why I'm saying it shouldn't be Dana White making that call. Like it should be somebody else. It should not be the promotion themselves.
Do we think Mark Montoya should have done something?
No. That's not his job.
Guy. He's backing his guy. Yeah.
He has to trust. He said it to you on the show. He has to trust that fighter, and that fighter has to trust him. That relationship, that thing, is the most important part of being somebody's coach or being in the trenches with somebody. If that person is lying to your face, that's a situation you have to assess on the other side of it. But you have to take their word, otherwise how could you go to battle together? If this guy is the one that you have to rely on to be in there and represent your team or on the other side of the coin, your coach is the one that you have to rely on. That honor, that truth, that transparency is the most important thing. So I personally would not put that responsibility on Montoya, just from the perspective that if Isaac tells him something, he has to trust it by nature. That is his job, to trust it. The same way we talk about like throwing in the towel or not. If a fighter comes to you and says, I don't want you to throw in the towel, you have to accept that, right? You have to go, like, this is your team. You guys have established the rules here. And so I don't fault Mark in that scenario.
The other thing in all of this is it's like this one makes your head spin. How did this all start? This started 3 years ago with Derek Minner and James Krause and Jeff Molina, right? And now you start digging more and more and more. And who found Isaac Delgarian many years ago? It's James Krause. James Krause is banned from the sport. Delgarian goes to Factory X. Mark Montoya has a longstanding relationship, or did, with James Krause. Every single one of the fighters that has spoken up and retracted are Iridium fighters, managed by Jason House. James Krause, managed by Jason House. Delgarian, managed by Jason House. And people are starting to bring this up and ask questions regarding that. Why does it seem to be... Jeff Molina was another Jason House manager. Now, I reached out to Iridium's PR and asked if they would provide a statement to these questions, accusations, if you want to call them that, and or if he wanted to come on the show and talk about it, which obviously would be the most ideal scenario, and they declined to comment. But there's a lot of, like, you know, item A, B, C, D, E, F that are all interconnected, it seems. And I'm not trying to imply that he had anything to do with it or that there's something going on there, but you can't ignore it. You can't ignore the common thread between all of these public, I don't know what we want to call them, confessions, not confession, I don't know what it is, but also these stories dating back to 2022 and who they were all connected to. So yeah, a very interesting story, and I'm very curious to see how it all plays out. Dana did confirm that the FBI is investigating it, obviously, because he said that he alerted them, and he did also say in that interview that I think he said like 7 FBI agents were at the office yesterday, Tuesday, unless that interview was done Monday. But whenever he was doing the interview, he said earlier today, there were 7 FBI agents. That's wild stuff. And not the best kind of stuff to be dealing with as you enter into a new TV partnership, and with the White House card looming in the background and whatnot. I don't think any of this puts any of that at risk, but it's just not the right kind of PR that you want.
Andrew Feldman posted a clip on Twitter from after the UFC 282 press conference, and Dana addressing it, basically just like, there's an investigation going on. I don't know anything. They're not going to tell me anything. We're just going to see how it plays out. And like, ultimately, we get to the point now where it feels like nothing really came from that other than a couple of suspensions and a couple guys out of the sport. For now,
yeah, for now, it's still ongoing. It's
correct,
still ongoing.
Correct. If you guys had to predict, like, do you think more comes from this one? This one feels like there's more eyes on it, but I don't know if it's just because it's fresh. Like, it's like a wave of, it just happened this past week, so that's why it feels like it's so forefront. Does a massive card happen, and then we just kind of start forgetting about it, and then time goes on, and then we just start forgetting about it, and then we're 3 months down the line, it's like, whatever happened to Isaac Dolgarian? I don't know. I haven't heard from him. Oh, he's fighting on an FAC card this weekend or something.
Sometimes it goes down that way. If Jack Della knocks out Islam, next week, like how old does the Tom Aspinall eye poke story feel now? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And how old is it going to feel the Monday after 322? And then by the time Ilya fights Patty, hopefully in January, how old is all? Yeah, so
and we're all on Paramount Plus at that point. And you had a month off from the sport, and it's just like, yeah, like what? In 2-3 months, what does it feel like for this?
And the truth is, the interesting thing about media, like so Pablo Torre is getting a lot of attention right now for all the work that he's doing, looking into the LA Clippers, and prior to that, Bill Belichick has a great podcast called Pablo Torre Finds Out. If you don't know about it, you probably do if you're a sports fan. I mean, even Pizzi over in Europe, you know who Pablo is, right?
Rick put me onto him, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and that's a byproduct of how big those sports are. I don't think there's anyone looking at MMA from a 10,000 foot view. I think that, you'll have your odd Dana White on 60 Minutes interview and stuff like that. But I don't know if anyone's like sinking their teeth on a national level into this stuff. And so, it ends up almost being us. And that's why, when guys like Ant are like, oh, the MMA media this and the MMA media that, like, there's a lot to freaking cover. There's just a lot to cover. And you're tasking people who are covering the day-to-day and the week-to-week of the sport with also the big picture stuff, and it's just hard to do both. You're a human being. So there's all to say, there's no Pablo Torres looking at this story, at least to the best of my knowledge, not right now.
I'm waiting for that text from like a friend who isn't into MMA but like is kind of into sports, or like a mom or dad that keeps up on the news. Like, I'm waiting for like someone outside of this space to be like, what's going on with this?
Has it happened yet?
It has not happened to me.
Yeah.
And yesterday I was with someone, work comes up and we're just like kind of chit-chatting about work, and like they essentially just know Conor McGregor, and I was just like, man, like that is just like tip of the iceberg type stuff.
Yep, 100%.
It's is it not imperative though to give us some closure on this? Just to GC's point, like, it is a good point. The James Krause thing, as much as we know it's still active, we haven't got a lot of information on it, and now this happens while that's still ongoing. Is it not imperative from the UFC's point of view to get an update on this, to give some closure to the fan base? Because as we said, like, it's the legitimacy of the sport, and namely the UFC, that will be called into question because of this.
I think the UFC and Dana White in particular handle it like the way they handle judging or refereeing stuff. Is like, this is not us. This has nothing to do with us.
And they probably should. They probably should, in fairness.
Thanks for watching this video. Before you go, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for us. Also, give us a thumbs up, leave a nice comment. These things go a long way. And while you're here, do check out the rest of the channel. We've got live shows and full interviews, clips, and a whole lot more. We're doing big things here, and we appreciate your support very much.